Okay, good morning again. Thanks a lot for joining me today. My name is Molly Webb. I am a GIS and data developer here on the data services team here at WashU. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about how to transition from the older desktop GIS application ArcMap to the newer GIS application ArcGIS Pro. Arrive at this box folder here that is called, that has the name of the workshop and today's date. In this folder is some data that we're going to be going through. So if you'd like, go ahead and initiate a download of that data. Also included are the workshop guide, which lists step-by-step the things we're going to be doing today in case you miss anything or want to go back and refresh your memory. And then also the presentation that I'm going to be going through is also included in this folder. So I'm going to go ahead and just download that now so we can use that as we get started. All right. So for those of you that haven't quite dipped your toe into ArcGIS Pro yet, we're going to talk about the resources you have available as part of the WashU community. Okay, so ArcGIS Pro licenses are available to anyone with a WUSTL key, essentially. And then you can click the link to our software installation guide or just go to our GIS research guide here for step-by-step instructions on how to install this on your own machine. Basically, you're going to fill out a form with some information. You'll download the installation files and install on your own machine. When you open that application each time, the licensing scheme that we used is called a named user licensing scheme. So you're going to log in through the WashU ArcGIS Online organization at wustl.maps.arcgis.com. And we'll go through that process here together so you can see what that looks like. If you do not wish to install ArcGIS Pro on your own machine, or perhaps you have a Mac or a machine that you're not able to install software on, we do have other options in terms of access to ArcGIS Pro, the main one of which is the Research Studio Computer Lab that's here in Olin Library on level A. It's just actually right across the floor from where I'm standing right now in the instruction room 2. You can access this computer lab physically by visiting during its opening hours, or you can also get 24/7 access remotely. You just have to go through a little authentication process there. There's a couple of things you need to install on your own machine for remote desktop access, but then you'll be good to go to schedule appointments and use those computers whenever is convenient for you. Despite the opening hours of the physical location. So feel free to check that out or ask me any questions if you have questions on remote access to the research studio. Okay, just some additional GIS resources. Obviously, the data services team can be kind of your first line of defense when it comes to your GIS questions. We do often offer open help desk hours Monday through Thursday. Monday and Tuesday are in the afternoon, and Wednesday and Thursday are in the morning. We do also offer appointment-based support, so you can go to library.wustl.edu/data to schedule an appointment and to access that Zoom help desk. If you'd like to do some just training on your own, in my mind, the content from Esri is very high quality and they keep it pretty up to date with new versions of the software. So if you go to esri.com/training, you'll see the course catalog there that you can search for ArcGIS Pro or ArcGIS Online or any of the Esri technologies, and you can get both free and paid content that's available on that website. If you do find some content that requires a subscription, you have access to that as well. Again, you're just going to be signing in with your WUSTL key through the WashU ArcGIS Online organization at wustl.maps.arcgis.com. All right. And there are a few GIS classes available here at WashU should you want to take your GIS exploration to the next level. The CAPS program has a GIS certificate, and then there's many other classes that offer GIS, at least as a tool, as part of the class. So if you're interested in that, you can check with your department to see what might be available there. Okay. So now let's get into the specifics of the ArcMap transition. So how long can I use ArcMap still? And the answer to this is not very long. So it's April right now. We're kind of on the downward slope for this school year. And this summer, when our contract with Esri renews, which usually happens in August, we will not be receiving any additional licenses for ArcMap. That's not a decision that we made. This is a decision that Esri has made. They're no longer supplying ArcMap licenses to their educational clients. So we will not be getting any licenses for ArcMap, meaning that your existing licenses are going to expire in August of this year. So now's the time. If you haven't already explored ArcGIS Pro, you really need to go ahead and get that going so you can address any issues prior to losing that license for ArcMap. They've already released the very last version of ArcMap. They released it several years ago. And so really they are kind of sunsetting this application, and it is time to move on to ArcGIS Pro in terms of desktop processing. Okay. So when I talk about transitioning, what are the big things that I need to keep in mind when I'm making this transition? So I'm just going to talk about the project structure, some terms that might have changed between the two applications, the differences in the application interface, working with the attributes underlying the spatial data, working with map layouts, the differences in symbology and labeling, how you can find those geoprocessing tools, and how you can edit your data. It's what we're going to try to cover today, and that is all in the workshop guide in case we don't get to everything during the 2 hours we have together today. So the main thing to start off with ArcGIS Pro is understanding that the entire structure of the project has changed. So in ArcMap, we basically had a map document, which is a .mxd file. Within that map document, we would have a single map layout. And then within that map layout, we could have one or more data frames which show different views of places on the Earth. So we're in ArcMap, in the MXD file, we were tied to having essentially one layout per file, which meant that if we wanted to develop something for, say, a report at 8.5 by 11, and then show that same map for a presentation at a smaller size appropriate for, say, a PowerPoint slide, then we would have to have two separate MXD files to do that. Also, the geodatabases would be kind of disconnected from the ArcMap document. Any toolboxes or any auxiliary files would be kind of outside of the map document, and we'd have to manage them all kind of on our own. With ArcGIS Pro, this changes a little bit because ArcGIS Pro now focuses on the project file. So you have the project file, which is a .aprx file. And then within that project file is going to be anything that you might need associated with that project. So you can have multiple layouts within that project, and within each of those layouts, you could have one or more map frames that show different angles of the same data or different places, and it's all contained within the project. You open up one file and everything is right there in the table of contents. Another thing with ArcGIS Pro is that it automatically creates a geodatabase with the same name as your project. And so the idea is that any outputs can go in that geodatabase and it keeps everything all together. kind of expanding on the ArcGIS Pro project structure a little bit more. So some examples of things we can have two layouts that are different sizes, but maybe show the same map. So we're using the same map within those two different layouts. We might just be showing it at different zoom levels. We can also, and this is big for ArcGIS Pro, we can also hold our 3D scenes within the project. So we can have local scenes, which are just going to show a smaller area of the Earth. We can have global scenes, which are going to show basically the Earth as a whole, as a globe. And all of these things are contained within the same file. So we have maps, our scenes, our layouts. We have that project geodatabase that gets created automatically. And we also have a toolbox that gets created automatically should we want to include any custom scripting tools or model builder models all within that project. All right. A lot of the terms are the same, but there are some things that are a little bit different. So in ArcMap, we had data view and layout view. That's how we switch back and forth between the map and the layout. In ArcGIS Pro, these are separate objects. So we have a map view or a map. They can be used kind of interchangeably. We have a layout. The data frame that was within our map in ArcMap is now called a map frame. If you ever used data-driven pages to create a series of maps within ArcGIS Pro, that functionality is called a map series now. Typically, any windows that would pop up in ArcMap are now generally referred to as panes, and they show up on the right side of our screen. And then the functionality that was spread across three separate tools in ArcMap, Pan, Zoom, and Identify, have been all combined into one tool, the Explore tool in ArcGIS Pro. Okay, a little bit about the application interface. So this is what the ArcMap interface looks like right now. And the ArcPro interface, we can see going to the next slide, is pretty similar. We still do have that catalog, which typically is anchored on the right side of the screen. We've got our table of contents, which in ArcGIS Pro is called the contents pane over here, typically anchored on the left side. We're still going to have our menu options across the top, but the other thing to keep in mind with ArcGIS Pro, like many of the Windows applications that are out there now, they have specific ribbons of tools associated with different menu tabs. So across the top, you're going to have map, insert, analysis, etc. And as we activate these different tabs, different tools are going to appear across the top line here, the top ribbon. Also of note are these contextual tabs. So depending on what you have selected in the table of contents on the left side of the screen, you may get additional tabs allowing you different access to the items in the contents pane that will be activated on select here. So for example, in this screenshot, we have a standard layer selected in our table of contents. So that has activated 3 additional tabs: appearance, labeling, and data, that are all associated with that particular layer. So in ArcMap, you know, there was always a lot of like right clicking and going to a menu of options and then choosing a menu. There are still some right clicking things that we're doing in Pro, but a lot of the tools are accessible by looking at the different ribbons and the contextual tabs now. So if you're ever struggling on where to find something, chances are, you know, clicking around and making sure that the item that you're focused on is selected is going to be the way to get those different options. Okay. Similarly, this is what your layout view looked like in ArcMap. It was basically just the same interface. And in ArcGIS Pro, it looks very similar, but again, we are going to have these different options across the main ribbon here, depending on what tab we have activated here. Okay. And so enough of the just chatting about the application. Now we're going to go ahead and work with it. Before I move on, I'm just going to take a pause and ask what questions you have about any of kind of the administrative aspects of working with ArcGIS Pro. Feel free to put your questions in the chat or unmute and speak.
Okay. I presume at some point will you go over how to map files to work with them in
Yes.
our Pro?
Yes, we are going to hit that today. And that's actually an excellent segue into me just reviewing what we have in this data folder that we're going to use. You'll see that there is an MXD file in there. So we're going to use that as a sample with how to do that. I'm just going to make sure, I'm not sure if anyone has joined since, but I am just going to copy this link to the box folder in the chat one more time to make sure everyone can get to that. And so if you haven't already, please do go ahead and download all of the files at that link. Most importantly, the ArcGIS Pro data folder is what I'd like you to grab. So when you download that folder, it's going to come down as a zip file. So I'm just going to right click on the file and I'm going to go to extract all. And I'm just going to, I'm going to put this here. Let's just say on my desktop for now. And just so I can get to it easier, but make sure you save that in an appropriate place for your experimentation today, someplace that you can get to it easily. And then let's take a look at what's in that folder. Okay, so we know that shapefiles look a little weird when we look at them in just straight up Windows Explorer, but we've got two shapefiles here, and then we also do have an MXD or an ArcMap file. So we've got our MXD file called Kirkwood Vacant. Within that MXD file are two shapefiles feeding the map there. We've got Kirkwood, which is the boundary of the Kirkwood municipality here in St. Louis County. And then we have an extract of parcels from Kirkwood. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up ArcGIS Pro. So I'm going to assume at this point that everybody has installed ArcGIS Pro on their own machines or are using a machine that already has it installed. If you have any issues with that, please do reach out to me and I can help you get through any issues you might have with installation. But for the purposes of this workshop, we're going to assume that everybody has the application. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just search up ArcGIS Pro on my Windows machine here. I'm working in the lab for instruction room 2. And so this should be pretty close to the experience that you would get on your own machine after installing. Okay, so when ArcGIS Pro first opens up, you're going to be prompted to sign in here. If you are seeing a blue button that says Washington University right here, go ahead and click that button. If you are seeing the ArcGIS Pro login like this, make sure you click on your organization's URL and enter in the WUSTL prefix to complete the URL wustel.maps.arcgis.com. If this is your own machine, you can go ahead and click remember that URL so you don't have to type it in every time. You'll hit continue and you'll get the blue Washington University button. Now, I'm going to pause right here because there is an issue that did come up this past fall when we had an update to our Duo two-factor authentication system for WashU. Some users of ArcGIS Pro experience this action whenever they log in to ArcGIS Pro and enter in their WUSTL key, the application would immediately close down and it would not start up again. Okay, so that is a known issue. There are some fixes that you can apply. One kind of temporary fix, if you experience that, is to click the sign in using browser method. And then that just opens up a web browser and allows you to sign in through there with your WSU key to activate ArcGIS Pro. That's one thing that you can do. The second thing that I'm going to have you do if you're experiencing that issue is check your version of ArcGIS Pro. And I'll show you how to check that here in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on signing in to Washington University. I'm going to sign in with my WSU key here. And then the application should open normally. If you're seeing your application completely shut down now, chances are you need to employ one of the fixes that I mentioned. So ArcGIS Pro will always let us know if there is a new version available. For now, I'm going to just clear out of that. But the second fix that you can do if you are experiencing the issue of the application shutting down is update to the latest version. So you can go to settings, and this is going to show you your version number. And it's also going to allow you to download that latest version and install it, or essentially upgrade your version in place. And then as long as you're using version 3.2.0 or higher, you should not experience that application shutdown issue. So just an FYI, if it's been a while since you've installed ArcGIS Pro, you may see that happen. And then those are two ways that you can get around that issue. Okay. Again, if you have any issues with that, please do reach out to me and I can help you walk through that. Okay, for now, I'm just going to go back to the opening page here. And so this is something that's a little bit different from ArcMap. So in ArcMap, we would usually have a window that pops up that asks us, do we want to create a blank map or do we want to use an existing map? Similarly, ArcGIS Pro is asking us if we want to start a new project, or if you had recent projects, they would show up in this list right here. Again, since I'm on a lab machine, we're not seeing anything here, but on your own personal machine, you will. So for me, whenever I want to just like take a look at some data really quick and I don't want to save a whole map or a whole project, I'll click this Start Without a Template option, which will open up ArcGIS Pro and not have any map or anything. And then I can create a new map from there and put in some data. And I don't have to generate all of the project files that ArcGIS Pro usually generates. However, for our purposes today, I'm going to go ahead and create a new project so we can see what gets created when we do that. Also, since I signed in with my WashU account, it's showing me that I'm signed in as Molly here in the upper right-hand side. So you want to make sure that that is that you're signed in, because that's how we're licensing the application. And that's also how we give you access to any of those extra extensions within the application, like spatial analyst or network analyst. Those are how through your WashU account is how we license those as well. So make sure that you stay signed in. All right, I'm going to go ahead and create a new map. And so this will prompt me to create a new project. And so what we need to do is choose two things. We need to choose what we want to name our project, and then we also want to decide where we're going to save it. So I'm going to click on, I don't want to save it at this default location here. I'm going to click on my file folder icon, and I'm going to go back to my desktop here. So I can say, I want you to create a new project on my desktop. All right. Do I want you to create a new folder for this project? I'm going to go ahead and say yes to that. Again, just so I can show you what all gets created when you create a new project. And I'm just going to call this ArcGIS Pro Workshop. And so this is going to be the name of my project, and it's also going to be the name of the folder that gets created. So I'll go ahead and hit OK there. And I'm going to, so I have full screen real estate here. You probably are not seeing my Zoom window here, but I'm seeing all of your gallery faces. So I'm just going to kind of move that up into my upper right-hand corner. So as this is getting going, I'm going to just move over to my desktop because I want to show you that here is the ArcGIS Pro workshop folder that just got created. If I click into that through ArcGIS Pro, I can see I've got the geodatabase that just got created with the same name. There's an index file, which is basically like an internal file that gets created for the project. We don't need to worry about that. We just need to kind of keep it along. We've got some other kind of internal files that get created. And then this ATBX file is the toolbox that gets created here. I can also see that after after all the kind of startup actions happen with ArcGIS Pro, I can see that I also have the .aprx or the workshop, or excuse me, the project file. And then I also have another internal folder here, the import log. So I would recommend when working with ArcGIS Pro, go ahead and create a new folder that is going to be your project folder, and everything in this folder is going to be saved associated with this project, so you know where everything is. And to this end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder within this project. I'm just going to right click and create new folder, and I'm going to call this data. All right. And so this is going to be where I'm going to put my data for the project here, the data that we downloaded from Box. I can also create a new folder in the contents pane as well. So since I just opened up my new project and it created everything fresh for me, if I expand this, I can see that that ArcGIS Pro workshop folder is already connected in my catalog pane, and I can see all of those subfolders here, including my geodatabase, my toolbox, and then here's that new folder that I created. If I'm not seeing that new folder, this is similar to what we could do in ArcMap. We can always right click and go to refresh, and that's going to kind of re-show all of the stuff in the folder. I also, if I wanted to just go ahead and create that new data folder here, I could do a right click and I could say new, and then here's all the options. This is very similar to the ArcMap functionality where we could create new geodatabases or folders or toolboxes or shape files. Those were all in ArcMap. There's a few more options here. And so, you know, you'll find that there are a lot of similarities in the workflows and functionalities, and that's one of them. Okay, so I see my data folder here, but I do want to go ahead and create a connection to that downloaded data folder so I can move all that data over. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to say add folder connection. I'm going to navigate to my desktop where I saved that folder, and I'm just going to create a new connection to this DS transition to ArcGIS Pro data folder that we downloaded in Box. Once I expand that, I can see that there's my 3 files there. And so to keep everything together, I'm going to go ahead and do a copy on these. So I'm just going to hold down Shift and select those 3 items. I'm going to right click and copy, and then I'm just going to go up to my data folder and I'm going to paste those in. So after pasting those in, that means everything is going to be within that one ArcGIS Pro workshop folder. So if I need to like take this folder and work on it on a different machine, I can just save that whole folder up to the cloud. I can go to my other machine, I can download the whole folder, and then I have everything I need because everything is right there within the same folder. Now that I have that data copied over, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the connection to this folder because I don't need that anymore. So I'm going to right click and I'm just going to say remove from project here. And now we're working back with just my main project folder. Okay. I'm just going to say that while I'm talking here, I can see the chat, and also, you know, I can hear you now. So feel free to ask any questions or ask me to repeat anything if I'm moving too fast. Okay, so now what we're going to do, Mark, specifically to your point, we're going to go ahead and see what it looks like when we bring in an existing MXD file. Okay, so in my data folder, I've got this Kirkwood vacant MXD, and I can add this in a few different ways. I can right click on the MXD and I can say import and open. I can go to map, or excuse me, sorry, I can go to insert, and then I can say import map. So there's the few different things that we can do there. What I'd like to point out here in the navigation for the catalog pane is that right now we have just a maps section, and within that map section is one map called map. I'm going to go ahead and close that map for right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring in that MXD file. So expanding folders, expanding my project file, expanding data, I'm going to right click on my MXD and I'm going to say import and open. So that's just going to take a few seconds to import. It's not a large file, so just needs to kind of do some things in the background. And now we're seeing some activity happening in the map window. I did get a transformation warning right here, which is basically just due to the different datums for the layer I brought in versus the base map. But we're not going to worry about that too much right now. We're going to focus on working with the application itself. Okay, so now that I brought that layout, or excuse me, now that I brought that MXD in, let's take a look at what's going on in the catalog pane now. All right, so now in my map section, I've got a new map called layers. And then I have a new item here for layouts. And if I expand that, I have a layout that has the same name as my MXD. So what ArcGIS Pro has done is it's taken the map frame within my MXD file. And if you're familiar with your MXD files, you know that the default name for any data frames is always layers. And then you can change it if you want, but layers is always the default name. And then, so that's now the name of my map. And then my layout has the same name as my MXD. So Kirkwood_vacant. And so what we're seeing on the screen right now is the map portion of my MXD. And then if we look at, if I just right click and say open on the layout portion, now we're seeing the full layout with like our legend and all that kind of stuff that's here in the layout. So just to repeat, when you bring in an MXD, all of your data frames are going to be converted to maps, and all of your layout views, which there should just be one because we're in MXDs here, then your layout view is going to turn into a layout object with the same name as your MXD. Okay. So since I'm a stickler for like data management and data organization here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename some of these items and clean up my files so so it's easier to know kind of what I'm doing. All right, so first of all, this map that got created automatically when I started ArcGIS Pro, we don't need that anymore or at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and right click and just delete that, and that's fine. There was nothing there anyways. For my map, now I want to give it a more descriptive name. So I'm gonna right click and I'm going to go to rename, and I'm gonna call this map Kirkwood vacant. Okay. So now I know this is a map and what it's showing. I can see that the tab also changed names here. And then I'm going to go to my layout and I'm going to right click and rename this. And I'm going to call this layout Kirkwood vacant. Okay. All right. So I kind of like to put the name of the object or like what the object is at the beginning. So then that way, I'm always clear. This is a map. This is a layout. In the catalog pane, it means less. If you're ever working with these things, maybe using scripting or in your model builder, it can be kind of helpful to know that these are layout objects and map objects and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's take a look at our map and dig into the interface a little bit more. Okay, so again, remember I talked about how based on what we have selected here at the top is going to determine what we're seeing here in our main ribbon. I'm going to click on the map tab because most of those like common tools that we use in ArcMap are represented here in this map ribbon. So first of all, base maps. All right. So you may recall that in ArcMap, the base map selector was kind of hidden in the add data function. So right here, it's front and center in this layer box. If you click on base map, you'll see that a drop down comes out with all of the different base maps. There's a lot more base maps available to us now in ArcGIS Pro. So I invite you to go ahead and explore those. Some of them are kind of more artistic. Some of them highlight certain features, but you can certainly explore whatever you'd like there. By default, it's going to have the world topographic base map, which for our purposes right now is fine. I'm just going to leave that there. The other kind of difference here is the Explore tool. So with the Explore tool highlighted, you can see that it's in blue here. We can choose what it wants us to explore. If we only want it to do identify on the topmost layer, we can have this option selected. If we want to just show us all visible layers, we can do that too. Or if we don't want it to have any pop-ups whatsoever when we click on items, that's an option. So typically in ArcMap, what we would do is we would activate the identify tool, and then we would go in and we would like click on things to find out what they are. Here, we're just going to click explore. And then with our little hand pointer icon, we're going to click on an item. And so since there were two layers that were within that click area, we have the Kirkwood boundary, which I'll just flash. So that's the whole boundary of Kirkwood. And then we have that particular parcel then that I clicked on. And so here's all the attributes for that particular parcel. So we can close this. You can also anchor this to, we can anchor this to the side, and now the pop-ups show up on the side as well. So you can kind of like anchor the layout however you like. Another thing that I want to just point out here, obviously doing selections is really key to our work in GIS. And so the selection box is right here. So right now our Explorer tool is activated, but if I want to highlight the select tool, I can do that. By default, it's going to select as a rectangle, just like the normal action that we're used to in ArcMap, but we can also select using some of these other options too, which like drawing a polygon or using a lasso or a line to select features. And so this is just a matter of, clicking and dragging and drawing that polygon. When I want to clear, I could just hit the clear button. My select by attributes is right here, front and center. So select by attributes is going to pop open this window. And if I want to say run a selection on the land parcels, maybe by tax code or something, then I build a query here to do that using these drop downs. So this is a little bit different from ArcMap because in ArcMap, we were actually writing that query in SQL. Here, it's allowing us to do it via this drop down. If you're not really into that and you'd rather go back to the SQL query building, you can always just click this little toggle switch there, and that will toggle the SQL back on. And this brings out the more traditional SQL query building if you'd like to go that route, which can be helpful sometimes. So that's how you can toggle back and forth there. Okay. Oh, it just selected all those. So I'm going to go ahead and clear. So that's select by attribute. We've got our select by location again, where we want to select, say we want to select all the parcels that are intersecting the Kirkwood boundary. We can do that here in select by location. So that functionality is pretty similar to what we saw before. And actually it probably should be reversed. We want to select all land parcels that are within the boundary. There we go. And then that's going to select all of those. Okay. The other handy thing is in terms of adding data to your map, we can do the drag and drop method. So if I wanted to add this shapefile back in, I can always drag and drop it into the map, which can be handy. Or they do offer the add data button again, where you can click add data and it opens up a window, file explorer window into your machine. I just want to show the additional options though for add data. And one that's growing in popularity is this add data from path. So as more and more data providers are providing web services for their data via a URL, you would use that URL in this data from path option, paste in that URL to the web service, and then that'll bring in the layer from the web service. If you ever did that in ArcMap, it was kind of a little bit more of an intense process where first you had to add an ArcGIS server, and then that would show up in your contents, and then you could drag and drop layers. So it's quite a bit easier now just to bring in a single web service layer. There's also other options here. If you've got XY data in a table, you can bring that in here, and then many other different types of ways of adding your data in this drop down. So a lot more expanded options here in ArcGIS Pro.
Molly,
Yes.
would that be an example of like if you wanted to bring in like census data?
So if the census data is available from a web service, then yes. And so what I mean by web services, and I'll just kind of do a little aside and show an example here. So I'm just going to open up a new tab and I'm going to go to the Missouri Spatial Data Information Service, or MSDIS. So I'm just going to Google MSDIS here. And MSDIS has this open data portal where you can search and see what data might be available from the state of Missouri. They do offer web services now as well. So if I click on the web services, this is a list of all the different web services. And so, for example, when it comes to the census mark, they are at least showing us the census tracts. Now, I don't know what is available in terms of attributes here, but they're at least showing us at the tracts, the shapes for the tracts. So to access this web service, once you've found one that you want to use, you just click in to the actual layer, and then you grab this URL right here. So I'm just going to grab this URL. I'm going to copy it to my clipboard. Then I'm going to go back to my map, and I'm going to say add data from path. I'm going to paste that URL in. It's recognizing it as an ArcGIS server web service, and it's going to add that in. All right, so now kind of on top of, now we have a web layer coming in. It's showing the shapes. We did not have to download anything here. This is basically like data that's streaming from their web server at MSDIS into our map right now. Now, the thing with the web services is, depending on the content provider and the person who created those layers, this functionality might be a little limited. So in this layer, we are able to view the attribute table, which is nice. We could probably change the symbology here, which is great. Some web layers do not allow you to do that. So you kind of have to be a little bit cautious with web layers. While we're on this topic, let's go ahead and look at another source for web layers, and that is Living Atlas, that is created by Esri. And there's a lot more census data that would be available through Living Atlas. So what I'm going to do here is in the catalog pane, there's different tabs going across the top. So right now we're in the project area, which is basically all the files that are on our machine. If I click on portal, this gives us access to everything within our AGOL instance. All right. So if you've ever done any work in ArcGIS Online, signed in as yourself with the WashU account, then any items you've created will show up here. But across the portal options here, all the way at the end, we've got this option called Living Atlas. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. So Living Atlas is essentially a collection, a curated collection of data layers, web services that Esri curates and maintains. The data can come from a bunch of different sources, so you do want to kind of go ahead and double check your sources and make sure that they're reputable sources and all that kind of stuff. We can click here and let's search for ACS just for kicks to see what's happening. All right, so ACS or American Community Survey. Okay, great. So we've got ACS median household income. Okay, that sounds okay to look at. And so I'm going to drag that in. And now just automatically, I've got some census data here that is broken out by at the state level, county. Since we're zoomed in a little bit here, we can see the tract level. But if we kind of zoom out a little bit more, it'll switch probably to the county level and so on and so forth. Let's see what that looks like here. That still tracts. There's our census tracts. I'm going to turn those off for the time being. And so I can see that the layer was loading here. And so now we have the county level layer turned on and so on and so forth. We can still click on those to figure out what we're actually looking at. And it looks like they have a nice little configured pop-up for us here that shows us the median household income in this area. So kind of a long answer to your question, Mark. Absolutely. Census data is something that's available as web services out there through Living Atlas, or chances are there's maybe other sources of it too. You can bring those directly into ArcGIS Pro. So ArcGIS Pro, I would say, works equally well with both the web-based data and the kind of like hard files on your machine.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah, no problem. One of the main selling points, I would say, for ArcGIS Pro, I mean, it's already sold, right? Like it's happening. They don't need to sell it anymore because it is what it is. But one of the things that I really like about Pro is that really easy interface between ArcGIS Online and Pro. So I'm involved in a lot of projects where we're publishing web maps. Story maps are really big right now. And so what's really cool is that when I'm creating a map in ArcGIS Pro, I can publish it right to AGOL from Pro right here. I would just say share, publish web map, and then this publishes right to ArcGIS Online. We're not going to cover that today, but because we're focusing more on the interface today, but just know it really is easy to go back and forth between ArcGIS Online and Pro. That's one of the big key developments there. Okay, thanks for your question, Mark. Please do continue to ask any questions as we move on. So next up, we're going to take a look at the attribute table. And so this is, I'm just going to turn off this layer for now here, since we're going to go back to our layers that came through with our map. The whole zoom to layer functionality is still there in Pro. So I'm going to say right click on Kirkwood boundary and go to zoom to layer. That's going to take us right back there to where we were. And so say I want to take a look at the attribute table for these parcels. So I'm just going to right click on my layer name and attribute table. This is the exact same as it was in ArcMap. The attribute table is going to show up on the bottom here for us. And any options for working with that table appear kind of in a line across the top. So manipulating the tables was always a little clunky in ArcMap. Like we'd have to start an editing session, or, you know, like adding a field would be a whole thing. But here we can just really easily add fields by clicking on the add button. It's going to open up the fields tab here. And again, with the whole contextual menu strategy for ArcGIS Pro, now that we're in fields view for our table, the options across the top have changed. Okay, and so what we're going to do here is we're going to add a new field just to practice kind of creating. I'm going to click into the field name, and I'm just going to call this full address 2, because there's already a field called full address. That's going to be the actual name of the field. And alias is just going to be populated automatically with that same name, but I could give it an alias. I'm going to call it a text field. Okay. And so I could set up some different formats and allow nulls and all that kind of stuff. Whatever you want to set up with your fields, you can do that here. And then when you're done, hit the save button to actually save that field. Okay, and so what we're going to do here is we're going to practice populating values in this new field. So this is one way that we can create new fields, is by going to the fields view, and I'm going to close that and notice how the ribbons go back to the way they are. I can get to that fields view again by clicking on the more options here on the right, and I can say fields view. That'll open that up here, as well as clicking the add fields button. That will add that or open that fields view as well. One cool thing about ArcGIS Pro is that when we hit the calculate button, it opens up this calculate field tool. So before in ArcMap, we would right click on the field and then the drop down would show up and we'd click calculate field there. It's a little bit different. The separate tool opens up. And what's cool about this tool is that I could either create a new field here without even going through the process that I just went through. I could just create it straight from here, or I can create or populate values in an existing field. So in my land parcels by type table, I want it to manipulate and create new values for my new field that I just created, full address 2. All right. So we have a couple of options of languages we can use to create fields if we need to do something that's more complex. VB script is still there and Python is still there. Those were both available in ArcMap. And then Pro has added this new scripting language called Arcade, which is a Esri Arc product specific scripting language. They wrote it themselves. It's brand new, only for ArcGIS products. And you can see, you'll see the arcade expressions not only in calculating fields, but also labeling expressions and different manipulations in ArcGIS Online as well. So across all those Esri products, this new scripting language called Arcade is being used. I'm just going to stick with Python for now. And so what I want to do is I'm just going to kind of concatenate some existing fields to create one full address field. So in the full address box here, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to put in, let's see, property add, that's the property address. And then I'm going to click the plus sign. And I'm going to put a comma in between those. So I'm going to just put in a little string that's going to be a comma, another plus sign. And then let's add the municipality. So come down here a little bit. Let's see, do we have the municipality? I'm pretty sure we do somewhere. There we go. Municipality. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put a space in between those. There we go. And these are all in Missouri, we know. So I'm going to just put a space Mo and then another space. Hopefully I get my spacing right here. And then finally, we're going to add the zip code, which is up here. Let's see. Property zip. Okay. And so what it's going to do is for this field, it's going to go through and it's going to look at all the values for that record for the rest of these attributes, and it's going to concatenate them into one long address field. All right. So if I did my spacing right, that should look okay. I can always click this little validate button and it's going to check my syntax there. Everything's looking okay. So I'm going to hit okay. And then let's see what happens. So that worked pretty quickly. It burned through those parcels. And if I scroll all the way over, I can see that I've got my new full address tab with the full address there. If I hover over it, the tooltip shows that full address. So this is just a way you can add new fields, populate them with values based on existing fields. Now, since we've done a couple of operations in Pro, I want to show you, I mean, I think I've already said my favorite thing about Pro, but this is another one of my kind of favorite things in Pro, and that is easy access to your processing history. Now, in ArcMap, we could also access our history. We would go into, like, I don't know, I think it was the geoprocessing menu and then results, and then we could look at history. In ArcGIS Pro, it's much more front and center. So across the top, I'm going to go to analysis, and this is how we would get to the different geoprocessing tools that we're looking for. But what I want to show you right now is the history button. So if I click on the history button, any operation that I've done since this map was created, or since this project was created, is here, and I can look at the parameters I set. I can look at the environments. I can look at the results. And then even cooler is this handy little copy to clipboard button. I can copy this and I can put all of these, all of the parameters, all the tools that were run, I can put those in my documentation if I'm working on a project to know, okay, here's the tool I ran and here's the parameters. It's like 2 clicks, easy, and then you can move on. So that way, either, if you're working with collaborators, they can see what you've done, or future you can go back and remember what you've done. So it's really a nice feature here to be able to see the history. And you can see that, as the project gets more complicated, this list is going to get bigger. So we can always filter based on some certain tools, or we can look and see, like, okay, what tools did I run on certain days and things like that. So that's really handy. I love that part about Pro. It's really made documenting my workflows so much easier. So definitely get to know that. Okay, so we're going to switch over to looking at layouts for a little bit, but before we move on, what questions do you have about working with the map view here?
Just to comment, it sure looks like everything, as you said, is very much more integrated and user friendly.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. We're all having to go through this transition. I just kind of a couple years ago, or whenever the writing was on the wall, I was like, okay, it's time to move on. And so I just kind of like picked a date and I said, okay, from now on, any new work I do is always going to be in Pro. And it kind of like forced me to get to know it. And sure, there's some painful moments sometimes getting to know any software. But once I got to know it, I was like, oh, well, yeah, this makes so much more sense now. Now, I'm not going to say that everything makes sense, but yes, you are right. Just the integration across all of Esri's tools is so nice. Having that single project with everything in it is great. And so, yeah, I hope that you all, as you kind of explore Pro and get into it more, I hope you'll find that these advantages definitely outweigh the pain of having to like switch everything over, because it is a little painful at times, but then again, what isn't? All right, thank you for that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the layouts now. Okay, so I'm just going to close my attribute table. And I'm going to click over to the layout. So another thing that I'll just note is as we use more and more tools here on the contents pane on the right, those are going to show up as tabs here. So if I know, share as web map is not something I'm going to be using in my work today, I can always right click and click close. If I want to click the history, I can click close. And so this is just a great way to be able to like switch back and forth between your different views. So going back to the catalog pane here, clicking on the project tab, this gets us back to kind of our file folders. If my layout wasn't already open, I could expand layouts and just say open, and then that would open it up there. Okay, so working with layouts for me was probably one of the trickiest things to get used to in Pro, just because it is a little bit different. But again, it's one of those situations where once I got past that initial hump, I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I'm really happy about this. So when we bring our layout in, all of the items in this layout are going to be showing up in the contents pane. So this is different from this is different from ArcMap because in ArcMap, even if we had text elements and legend elements in our layout, like there was no way for us to really switch back and forth between the elements besides just clicking them within the layout pane. Here we can access them because they're all listed out separately here in our drawing order in the contents pane. So that's really handy. So here we have a couple of different text box here. All right. And so one of them, as I click on it, this is the title. And so just to make things easier for myself, I'm going to click once and then click twice into this text box. And I'm going to say that this is text, yes, but this is the title. And so I know now, okay, this is the title. This one here is like the credits. So I'll just click into it and just clean up my naming a little bit. This is the credits and so on and so forth. So let's say on my title, I want to change this up a little bit. So I highlight the text element here, and then I can see that a contextual menu has showed up here for text. I can click on that. That gives me quick access to the font and the color and the size and all that stuff. If I want to adjust the text, I can click into it here, either by double clicking the element, or I can always right click and go to properties, and that will open up the same thing. This is the element properties over here on the right side. And so I'm just going to change this. Instead of I'll just change it to, say I want Missouri written out. So I can update that. If I want this to be, maybe a different color, or maybe I want to add a stroke or some other symbology. I can either go to text symbol here, and this lets me change the color. Say for some reason I want that to be blue. I hit apply and that changes that. But again, everything is kind of within these little contextual menus. So the properties here, this is general. And then if I want to change the placement options, I can click on the little placement icon. Then if I want to change the symbol, then I click on text symbol, and you can see that additional icons show up. So everything is available. You just might have to kind of like look for it a little bit more within the icons and the different menus. All right, let's see. So that's just text elements. Legends, because legend manipulation is kind of a big deal. What I'm going to do here is just show you a little bit more about the navigation as we zoom into the legend. So I'm going to click on layout, and this gives us a different set of options than when we were on the map view. So there's navigate, and this is going to be just navigating within this layout, within this piece of paper that we're seeing on the screen. If I just roll my scroll wheel and zoom in and out, it zooms in and out. If I want to zoom into a specific place, I can hold shift and click and draw a little icon, or sorry, a little polygon, and then that will zoom into that section. All right. If I want to do full view or full extent, that's this little icon here at the top. And so I'm going to, again, just kind of shift in or shift polygon into the bottom section here. And so another thing that I just want to point out in terms of navigation is this select menu here. So this is how you select different options interactively in your layout. So right now I'm going to hit clear selection, and now I can see I don't have anything selected. But when I'm ready to select something, I click on select, and then I can select interactively here on the map. And I can see that as I select things, they're highlighted here in the drawing order. So I know exactly what I'm working with here. All right, so for the legend, lots of stuff happening in the legend here. Another kind of favorite thing of mine is that in the legend, I can choose just right here which things I want to show. So we added some new layers for the census. Say I don't want to show those, so I can just uncheck those right here, and they won't show in the legend, but that's actually disconnected from my my actual main menu or my main map. So if I click on census tracks here, they turn on in my map, but they don't turn on in my legend. And sometimes we might want that to happen. And so that's a good way to handle that. If I absolutely do want my items to be tied to my legend, so basically if a new item gets made to my map, I want it to be in the legend, I can make that happen. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to properties for my legend. That's going to show my legend properties here. And I'm going to click on this first option, which is just the general options. And so this says synchronize with map layer visibility. And so this is what toggles that. So now if I turn on the legend here, I can see, or turn on that item in the legend, I can see it added to my map. And when I turn off this legend or this item in my map, then it goes away from the legend, even though it's still turned on here. If I uncheck layer visibility and then I turn this back on, let's see, turn that on, turn that on, then they should be connected there. Let's see here. Okay, maybe not. Oh, yes, sorry. There we go. So yeah, so that's just ways you can kind of automatically manipulate your legend. If you want to mess around with like the way that your legend looks, the spacing options are on the arrangement tab. Here's where we can set the border. So say we wanted to set a dark gray border, we could set that, and now that's showing up. So lots of different options for working with our legend. And I feel like I could probably spend a solid 2 hours just going through legend manipulations here. So a little trick is when you want to change the text, if you're on the text symbol icon, then it's going to change the text for everything. So say we change that to Cambria. Now the whole entire legend is Cambria. Say I want to make only the land parcels by type bold. Well, then what I need to do here is right now the legend is selected for our text symbol. If I just want to manipulate the symbol for the, let's see, this is a layer name. So I say, okay, now I want to just manipulate the symbols for layer names. and say I want to make that bold. Oh, there's no option to make it bold. Let's make it something else. Say I want that to be like, I don't know, blue or something. That just changes that one item instead of changing the text for the whole legend. So you really can get into those very small little pieces of your legend. You just gotta have to mess around with it. The last thing that I'll say about the legend is that the spacing options are available here. If you want to manipulate for a particular layer, then you highlight that layer in the legend here. And then this shows up the legend item properties. So say I don't want the patch to be that big, say I want the patch to be smaller, I can make that patch a little bit smaller here, focus specifically on this legend item, not the whole legend as a whole. Okay, so there's legends. And so the other thing I want to show, since we're here on the layout pane, I'm going to go back to my full view. I'm going to turn off my census tracks just because those are kind of taking over everything. Say I want to, say I feel like my zoom level is like too zoomed in at this point. Say I want to zoom out a little bit more. Well, I can't do that here in the layout. What I need to do is I need to activate the map frame and then work with my extent in the map frame. So I can activate my map frame a couple of different ways. I can either right click on the map frame in the table of contents and click activate, or within my layout ribbon here with my map frame highlighted, I can click activate. And so what that does is that sets aside all of the ability to manipulate the layout, and it focuses back on the map itself. So once we activate the map frame, I can see that all of my options associated with the map are now available. So my explore, my fixed zoom in and out is here. If I had bookmarks, I could access my bookmarks here. So this is something as well as feature editing. So these are all things that you can do from within the layout. You just have to activate your map frame first, and then you can do those manipulations. When you're done, you just click the layout button again, and now we're back to the actual layout. Okay, so now let's look and see what it's like to create a brand new layout. So I'm going to go up to layout. Oops, sorry, insert. I'm going to go to insert. I'm going to say new layout, and immediately it's going to ask me what size I want. So it has the standard sizes listed here. If you want to do a custom size, you can certainly do that here by setting the width and the height. For now, I'm going to say I just want a let's say a landscape orientation. Say I'm doing this for, I want to create a visual for a PowerPoint presentation. Well, I don't want it to be 8.5 by 11. It's going to be a little bit smaller. So say I'll do a 10 width by 7-inch height. All right. So now I've got a new blank layout. In my catalog pane, I have a new layout here. I'm going to go ahead and click once into that to make it editable. And I'm going to change this to Kirkwood. Let's just call this PowerPoint, because say I'm going to put this in a PowerPoint. Okay, so I want this to show the same content as I have in my Kirkwood map. So the cool thing is, even though I'm using the map in this layout, I can also use the map in this layout too. So I've got my Kirkwood map here, and in my layout tab, or sorry, let me see, not layout tab, in the insert tab again. So makes sense. Anytime I'm inserting into the layout, I'm going into the insert tab. I'm going to click on map frame, and any maps I have as part of my project are going to show up here. So this was the last extent that I showed for my Kirkwood map. So I'm going to click that. Now I clicked it once, nothing happened on my screen yet. Nothing's going to happen until I actually place that map frame. So my cursor now is a little plus sign with a tiny little box next to it. I'm going to click on the upper left and draw a polygon, and that's going to drop my map frame in there, referencing that map. So now I've got that map that's referenced in two separate layouts. They're both different sizes. All right. And so again, I could add different elements here if I wanted to. If I want to maybe change the zoom level a little bit, I go to layout, activate. And so now my map frame is activated here, and I can do kind of that zooming in and out if I want to do that and go back. Now, one thing, again, in terms of keeping our workspace organized, it's really easy to just accept the defaults and say, okay, map frame, cool. If I stick another map frame in there, maybe I'll have map frame 2, and that just can get a little confusing. So I like to always just kind of give myself a little clue as to what these elements actually are here. So this is my map frame, and it's the Kirkwood one. If I added another one in, I would change that, and so on and so forth. If I'm adding a legend fresh, so like I said before, pretty much anything I need is here in the insert ribbon. So if I said legend, okay, I'm going to add a legend. Again, nothing's going to happen on my screen until I go ahead and I draw a spot where I want that legend to be. So now I have this legend item here. I can uncheck or check whatever I want it to show. Let's just say for now, I want it to show at the Kirkwood boundary and the parcels. To clean up my legend a little bit, I would right click, go to properties, and say, okay, I don't want it to show the title. I want it to just be like plain. Say I want to give it about like a border and a fill color. So I go to the display tab here, and I go ahead and I set that border and that background color. Just make that white. All right, so now I have that. If I go to the arrangement, this will give me the minimum font size. So say I want the minimum font size to be 10, so I can actually see everything. This means that if I go too far, if I go too small with my legend, you're going to get these little 3 dots that say not all of your stuff can fit in this size. So you need to kind of adjust until it gets fitted. And if you need to expand, give yourself more space, you can use the word wrapping strategy here for labels and descriptions that is going to give you just more space for your legend. If I don't want to show the LU code, this would be a situation where we would go into the item properties. So land parcels by type, I'm going to say properties, and then this controls what I want it to show. I want it to show the layer name, sure. Do I want it to show the heading? No, because that just makes my legend look a little messy. And then yes, obviously I want to show the labels too. But there may be some situations where you don't. So like I said before, working with the legends is going to take a little bit of practice and a little bit of exploration here, but you can control literally every single aspect of your legend and make it look however you want. All right, let's just do some quick scale bar and credits real quick. So similar situation here, scale bar, I'm gonna just pick one. Let's just choose this single division. I'm gonna drop that in. Now I have a scale bar showing up. All of the properties of the scale bar are available to me here. This is how I can manipulate the font for the units. I can change the units to kilometers if I want, and say I don't want it to say kilometers, say I just want it to say km. I can change that there. I can change the placement. If I want to change the color of the bar, that's in the properties here. Say I want it to be a, I don't know, red bar with orange, you know, border or whatever. So you can really dig in there and change each one of those elements to be however you want them to be. And then obviously the scale will respond. One thing that I do want to show just on the scale bar and the legend in that case is that these are going to be tied to a particular map frame. So again, if you have multiple map frames on your layouts, you want to make sure that the scale bar that you're showing is the associated with the map frame. So that's just right here in the very opening page of the properties for the scale bar. Any map frames I have would be showing here. So yes, we're good. This is for the Kirkwood map frame. Same with the legend, just ensuring that yes, it is associated with the right map frame. Can drop a quick north arrow here. That's pretty easy. There's my little north arrow. Again, all the properties. And then a text element. So there's this whole graphics and text section right here. If you want to drop in like some markers or curved text, here's just the straight up like regular text box. So there's that. And I can say, you know, this is my map. And if I wanted this to be with a background, just drop that in. There's the border. There's the background. And now I have my little text box. And I can manipulate that font here, choose the font that I like, and the size, and so on and so forth. Once I've finished creating this questionable looking layout right now, let's say that this looks really nice and I want to export this and be able to put it in my presentation. From the layout, with the layout activated here, I can go to the Share tab. And then this is how I do the export. So I just click on this little export button. My export layout pane pops up. It will let me choose where I want this to go. I'll just drop it right here in my project folder. Typically, I would have a folder for like figures or something like that. In fact, why don't I go ahead and do that? I can create a new folder just right here within the export layout window. And so now I'll call this my Kirkwood layout. PDF is the default, but there's a bunch of other file formats. You can change those settings. Then you hit export. And now if I look in my figures folder, there's my PDF. All right, there we go. Okay, so next up, we're going to look into symbolizing and labeling a little bit more. But before I move on, and what questions do we have? Okay. So I'm going to hit this one in the chat. So in the chat, if you have data-driven pages set up in ArcMap, will those settings come in as the map series when you import into Pro? Yes, it will. So when you bring in your data-driven pages, you'll bring it in and you'll have, again, the map and the layout. So within that layout, your data-driven pages will show up as a map series there. So within layout, I do not have a map series here, so that's why we have nothing showing up, but list map series pages would be where that would show up, but we do not have a map series. I could always start a map series fresh too by going to insert and then map series, and then this is going to give us all the same settings that data-driven pages gave us in ArcMap. But yes, if we have data-driven pages enabled in an MXD, then that will transform into a map series in your Pro project. What other questions about the layouts do you have before we go into symbology and labeling? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's move on. All right, so far we've been working with existing maps already. Let's do an example of creating a map from scratch. So I'm going to go to my catalog pane. I'm going to go into maps and I'm going to say new map. I could also do insert and then new map here. So again, just different ways of getting to the same thing. So we'll just try that method. And what I'm going to attempt to do here is show some commercial properties within Kirkwood. And so after this map gets generated here, I'm going to click once and then click twice to make the name editable. And I'm going to call this, come on. I'm going to call this map Kirkwood commercial. And so now I'll know that this is going to be showing some commercial properties. Let's go ahead and bring some layers in. So I'm going to go back to my data folder and I'm going to bring in that Kirkwood boundary and it's going to zoom right into that boundary here. And then I'm going to bring in the Kirkwood parcels. There we go. All right. Now, one thing I'm noticing here is that our orientation looks a little strange now. And so I'm wondering if I inadvertently messed that up somehow. So this will be a good little troubleshooting on the fly situation for me. Ground to grid connection. So I'm going to go into the map properties. So I'm going to do a right click. I'm going to do a properties. Okay, so for some reason, I'm not quite sure why this is, but when I created this new map, the rotation was set at -6 degrees. Not quite sure what was going on there. I must have clicked something or made some kind of mistake, but we don't want the entire map to be rotated for this case. Maybe in some cases you would, and so there's that. But if you do see anything weird, you know, that's how you access the map properties. So I'm going to go ahead and set that back to 0. Let's see what else is in our properties just for kicks here, since we're here. Your display units, the extent, the coordinate system associated with your map, that's going to be really key because again, similar to ArcMap, our map itself is going to have a coordinate system and then the data coming in is also going to have a coordinate system. So the map is going to take on the coordinate system of whatever that first layer you brought in is. By default, the map is going to start off probably in the Web Mercator coordinate system because that's the coordinate system for our base map. But then once you bring a layer in, it's going to automatically adjust to be whatever the coordinate system of that data is. So you can find out all that information by right-clicking properties and then looking at coordinate systems here. While we're on right-clicking and looking at properties, another thing that I want to show you is if you right-click on a layer and go to properties, and then you look at the source, this is how you can tell where your data is actually living. And that was something that that is good to know because sometimes you're not quite sure where those layers are coming from. So that's a good way to figure that out. And then for some reason, they do have spatial reference kind of buried here a little bit. You have to go into source and then expand spatial reference. And then that's going to show you the coordinate system for this particular layer. Okay. Okay, so right now, for our parcels, I'm gonna drag our parcels actually underneath the boundary. And so the default symbology here is just this pink. I'm going to click on the patch to open up the symbology pane over here. I could also do a right click and go to symbology here, Or I could also make sure that the layer is selected here, go to feature layer, and then get to symbology here. So there's actually 3 different ways you can get to symbology for your feature layers, and you can just do whatever one is most convenient for you. When you click on the patch, it is going to open up this gallery if you want to do some of the pre-made symbols that Esri has available, like hatching, or, there's all kinds of pre-made ones that you can use. I just picked one. But then also, if you want to actually get into the manipulating the outline and the color, you're going to click on the properties tab, and then we can set the color. Let's say I want the color to be no color, and I want the boundary to be kind of a dark red 2-point boundary, then I can set that there and hit apply. And that's how we manipulate just that single symbol strategy. If I want to do that unique values or by a number, so we could do something like this. So going to our parcels now, I can see that the symbology pane is still up, but when I highlighted the parcels layer, now I'm working on the parcel symbology. So I don't have to keep right-clicking and going to symbology. It just automatically ties to whatever I have highlighted here in the left-hand pane. So instead of single symbols, let's say I want to do unique values. And I know I have a land use code in this parcel data. It's LU code. And so I'm going to click this, and I'm going to go down to LU code, and that's going to add in all of the different types of symbol of land use codes, and it's going to symbolize those however I want. Okay, now say I only want to show just the commercial parcels here, and everything else I just want to be kind of a neutral color. Well, I can manipulate those classes, clicking the add all values to get everything in there. And then I can click on this add button here to add unlisted values. Well, they're all listed. So I have all those set, but say I want to only show commercial. So I can click on each one of these and say remove. And so now I'm working towards just showing the commercial properties. Just going to do this a couple times, remove, 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 remove. And so now only my commercial properties are showing up in this green, and then everything else is in the all other values section. So if I wanted to make this maybe a little bit bolder, I could just click on the little patch and do that. And then if I wanted to manipulate all of the other ones, click on the patch and change that, apply. Okay. Now, say I only want to show the commercial properties. Say I don't want to show anything else. To remove all these other values, I go into the more options here and uncheck the box next to show all other values. So now everything else has gone away, and now I'm just showing those commercial parcels. Similarly, if I wanted to say have all the properties in different colors, but say all have a 2-point boundary, I could click on format all symbols, and then that would apply whatever styling here to all of the symbols across all the classes. So those are things that we would do in ArcMap too. And so I just wanted to show you the equivalent in Pro. All right, in terms of labeling, so labeling is also kind of in this text specific pop-up here. So with parcels Kirkwood highlighted, I'm going to click on the labeling, and then here's a whole entire ribbon dedicated to labeling. So however I want to label them, the first thing I need to make sure is that this label button is on. So that's going to be the control that controls me showing my labels or not. I can figure out what I want to show. So for now, maybe I'll just show the address, and say I want that to be in a different font, say Century. And so I can see my little spin wheel is working here, and these labels are going to look pretty crowded because of the zoom level we're at. But if I wanted to, I could always just kind of zoom in, say on this Manchester corridor here, and this would show the labels for these properties. So lots of stuff can happen in the label. And so you can manipulate those. If you want to have different label classes, just like we could in ArcGIS or in ArcMap, we can set different classes here by SQL queries. So say we wanted all the commercial properties labels to be green, but we wanted everything else to be black. We could set up different different classes for our labels and get those set up there. Okay. All right. So time is flying by here. So let's move on to our next topic, which is going to be geoprocessing tools. And I can see my labels are even still trying to label here. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn off the labels for now, just to kind of speed things along a little bit. Okay, so we've got our commercial properties up here. All of the features are still like visible. We're just not showing them. So let's say we want to create a buffer around all of our commercial properties. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is another thing that we would do a lot in ArcMap is setting definition queries. So definition queries are still something that you can set in Pro. To do that, you can either right click and go to properties and set your definition query here. Or I could go to the data tab with my layer highlighted, and then there's also a definition query window right here. So this is pretty handy. So let me show you an example. So this is opening up that definition query pane again. I just clicked on this little arrow here in the bottom right of my box. And I said, okay, give me a new definition query. Give me everything where Lu code is equal to, and we'll say commercial. All right. I can name this query. So I can call this query commercial. Okay. And apply and apply. Okay. And so now, if I look in my attribute table, so right click attribute table, only my commercial properties are showing here. All right. So Lu code equals commercial. Now, say I may also want to see easily some other types of features. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead and change me back to just single symbol for now, just so I can see everything. I'm going to go back to my definition query. I'm going to create a new query here. And I'm going to say, okay, give me everything where Lu code is equal to, let's do parks. So then this query, I'll call this query park. And then I will apply this one and turn it on. All right. So now that's my active query. All right. And if I zoom out a little bit, all right, here is the parks layer. All right, now what I wanted to show you that's pretty cool, if I go back to this data tab, now that I have these two queries saved, I can really easily switch back and forth just by using this little drop down. I love this part about Pro. It's so easy to say, first of all, are there any definition queries on my data? And if so, what are they? Just right here, right within the like home interface. All right, so let's go back to our commercial properties, okay? All right, so to run geoprocessing tools, we're gonna go to our analysis tab, and then if they do have access to some of these like frequently used tools. But usually what I do is I'll go into the tools button there. That opens up the geoprocessing pane. And then this is similar to the search functionality for tools in ArcMap. I can just search for, let's say like multi-ring buffer. All right. And so then the tool runs right here from within this geoprocessing pane. In ArcMap, like the tool would show up in the middle of the screen. Here, the tools will be on the side and they'll run kind of in the background while we still can manipulate our information here. So just for ease of use, I'm going to go back to data and just switch this to the parks one so we have fewer features. And I'm just going to run this really quick. So I'm going to say, okay, you run it on the parcels. It's telling me that that their records are filtered somehow, which is good to know. For output feature class, I'm going to just drop this into my database. Distances, say we'll do like 5 and 10. I assume that's going to be on maybe, okay, distance unit by default, that's going to be tied to the coordinate system. I could always do like a meter or a mile or choose a different one. So all those same settings are just right here. Let's see what parameter I'm missing. Oh, distances. Let's say 4 meters and 8 meters. Sorry, it actually wants you to do them all separately. Okay. So run. It's running. There's my output. It adds it automatically to the map. If I want to just for kicks, check my history, go to analysis, history, and there is the multi-ring buffer along with all the parameters that I used that I can go back and access. So all the same geoprocessing tools that we used in Pro are also available here. I'm pretty sure that at this point, Pro has 100% parity with the tools that were offered in ArcMap. One thing I will note about parity is that some of you may remember an older data format in Arc products called a coverage. Pro actually does not offer any functionality for coverages. So if you have any data as an older coverage file, you will want to convert that to a feature class or a shape file to be able to access that in Pro. There may be some tools that you can convert, but I would go ahead and take care of that before you lose your ArcMap license. Again, coverages are pretty old, so you might not have any of those around anymore, but you should just know that Pro does not read coverage files. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to try to squeeze in here in the last few minutes is editing. All right. Now, editing, again, I will say it has been a breath of fresh air to do editing within Pro. It's a little bit weird in that in ArcMap, we would have to start an editing session and then do all of our editing and save. We actually don't need to do that in ArcMap, in Pro. In Pro, we're kind of like always in an editing session whenever we want. We just have to be kind of careful about what we're doing. So I have my parks buff layer here, and say I want to kind of manipulate these vertices a little bit for this main Kirkwood Park here. So I'm going to just zoom into this layer and I can see my multi-ring buffers here. I'm going to click on the edit menu. And then to get started, I need to choose what I'm going to do. Am I going to create a new feature? Am I going to modify an existing feature? I will say that the snapping menu is here. And so if you want to activate snapping, you can just activate that right here with that button. Say I'm going to change the shape of this park. Say they're doing some additional expansion and the park has gotten bigger. So I want to use my little select button and I'm going to select one of the features. And then it does give me a variety of the different options here that I want to do. And so if I click edit vertices, then all the vertices are going to show up. And then I have this little tray down here that lets me add and remove vertices as I want. All right. So say the park is going to expand a little bit. I'm going to add a let's try that again. edit vertices. All right, I'm going to add a vertex here. And then there we go. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here, just using my scroll wheel to zoom in. All right, and then I'm going to add another vertex here. And then say I'm going to kind of move this out a little bit. Okay, you know, do whatever editing I'm going to do. I'm going to close my edit vertices. Now the shape has been manipulated. And I didn't even have to start an edit session or anything like that, but I do have to save my edits. So I have to hit save right here and click yes, and then that will allow me to save my edits. So there's lots of different manipulations you can do on your shape's geometries. In this same vein, we can also edit the attributes. We can do that a couple of different ways. So I have this single feature selected right here. I can click on attributes, and that will give me my attributes down here as a as a list. Or I could always do a right click, open the attribute table, and then I could manipulate the attribute table here also. So in this layer, there aren't a whole lot of attributes to edit because we just created that layer. But say I wanted to change this to like 10 and 20, I could do that here right within the attribute table, and then making sure I go back up to edit and save. And then that's going to save my edits to that attribute table. So again, you know, editing, it's a little bit different than it was in ArcMap. It's a little bit easier to kind of accidentally edit something. But Arc Pro is really good at if you have edits that aren't saved and you try to do like a run a geoprocessing tool or something like that, it will give you a warning message saying that there are still active edits happening. And then you can say, oh, I didn't mean to do that. And you can undo them or whatever. But I've really enjoyed kind of getting to know the new editing functionality of Pro because it is really easy. Okay, so those were kind of all of the topics that I wanted to get through today. Again, everything that we did today is outlined step by step in the workshop guide. So feel free to go back and check that out if you want to explore some of this stuff on your own. Go ahead, and again, if you're not using Pro yet, why not make today that date of saying, okay, any future work I'm going to do in Pro. And then if you have any maps that you are still working with that you know you're going to want to work with in the future, go ahead and get those kind of ported over so you can address any concerns before we lose those ArcMap licenses. So just as we wrap up, what other questions do you have about Pro or anything that we covered in today's workshop?
And then is it easy then to take a map that you've created and then transfer it to ArcGIS Online?
Yeah, so let's look and see what that looks like. So I have my map here. So we created this new map and we did some manipulations. Let me clear and just zoom back to the boundary. So say I want to make this new map of commercial parks in Kirkwood. So at your map level here, you can do one of two things, and I'm just going to try to slide my zoom over a little bit. We can do a right click, and we can do a oops, sorry, I guess it's not here. That's in the layers. So we can do one of two things. We can either save up a whole map or we can save up a layer. So to save up a whole map, you go to Share and then Web Map. And then this is going to connect to your ArcGIS Online instance where you're going to name it and you're going to give it, you know, all of the tags and everything. You can choose a folder. You can choose who you want to share it with right here. And then you'll click Analyze. It'll make sure that there's nothing in there that it can't save up, and then Share, and that will share it as a web map. It'll be a web map item in ArcGIS Online. Now, one thing that I will note is that you cannot overwrite a map. So if I save this map as Kirkwood map in ArcGIS Online, and then I change some things and I want to resave it, I cannot save over that map. I have to basically delete that map and then save a new version to ArcGIS Online. What also is possible is saving web layers. So if I want to just save this parks buffer layer, I can right click and go to sharing, and I can either share as web layer, or if I'd made some changes to this layer and I want to save over an existing layer, I would do overwrite web layer. So share as web layer is going to give us that same thing. And so this is going to be a layer, or what ArcGIS Online calls a hosted feature layer within ArcGIS Online. And then I can bring that into a web map just as a layer that I want to use. So yeah, it's all going to be through this share menu. So share web map or share web layer, publish or overwrite.
Great. Last question for me is this, what you did today, is this being recorded that we can go back and watch?
Yep. So I recorded the workshop. And so what we typically do for our workshops is we put them up on our YouTube channel. So probably within the next week or two, I'll get that posted up, and I will send an email to everyone that registered for the workshop with that link. So yeah, it'll be available for you to refer to if you want.
Great.
What other questions do you have? Okay. Well, hearing and seeing none, I'll just say thank you so much for joining me this morning. Please do reach out if you have any other questions. But like I said, I'll be in touch with that recording link. And good luck getting to know ArcGIS Pro. I hope you find the advantages of the application. So thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you, Molly.
Thanks, Mark. I'll see you later.